Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something really quite interesting, cocoa fiber.
hmm
Now, this isn't the cocoa powder you might know. It's actually a byproduct for making chocolate, specifically from the husks of cocoa beans.
Right.
And the key thing, it's packed with fiber, really high cellulose content.
Exactly. And it's fascinating because, this was something often just discarded,
Yeah.
but now people are really seeing its potential. So our goal today in this deep dive is to explore, well, why this global market for cocoa fiber is taking off, what's
Right.
it used for, and, what are the real drivers behind this popularity?
And the growth numbers are pretty striking. We're looking at a projection for next year, 2025, of about USD 456.2 million globally.
Which is already significant.
It is.
Mm.
But then it gets even more interesting. The forecast suggests it could nearly double, hitting USD 838.2 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of almost 8%, 7.90% to be exact.
Wow. Yeah, that kind of jump, it really tells you something's happening. And a big piece of that puzzle is likely something you, our listener, are seeing everywhere, this huge shift towards, well, natural products.
And eco-friendly ones too, right?
Absolutely. Things that are good for you, good for the planet. That demand is a major factor here.
Okay, so this byproduct is definitely gaining momentum. But let's get down to basics first. What exactly is cocoa fiber, and where in the chocolate-making journey does it come from?
Okay, so imagine the process. You harvest the cocoa beans, you process them to get to the good stuff for chocolate.
Right, the nibs and everything.
Exactly.
All right.
Cocoa fiber is essentially the leftover part, the outer shell or husk of the bean, that isn't used for the main chocolate product.
Ah, okay. The husk.
Yes, it's completely natural, plant-based, and like you said, the big draw is that high dietary fiber content.
Which everyone's talking about now, gut health, fiber intake.
Precisely. So finding a natural source like this is, well, it's very appealing.
But it's not just about eating it, is it? I saw mentions of some surprising non-food uses too.
Oh, definitely. That's where the versatility really comes in. Beyond food and drinks, people are looking at it for things like biodegradable packaging.
Really? Instead of plastic.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah?
Its natural fiber structure could work as a sustainable alternative. Then there's research into using it in cosmetics, personal care products,
Huh.
even in, believe it or not, textiles and animal feed. It offers a greener option compared to some synthetic materials.
So it's finding uses way beyond just being a food ingredient, almost like a whole new resource.
It really is, and that's why you're seeing significant investment going into improving the extraction methods.
To get more out and better quality.
Exactly. Better yield, higher quality, but also doing it in ways that are, kinder to the environment.
Mhm.
And at the same time, exploring these new avenues like packaging or biocomposites, it just keeps opening up more possibilities.
Okay, let's circle back to that market growth. We had the big picture. But what about geographically? Who's leading the way here?
Right. So looking at the regions, North America is currently the biggest player. For 2025, we're talking about roughly USD 168.8 million.
Wow, that's over 37% of the global market.
It is, and they're expected to grow steadily around 6.7% year on year through to 2033.
And within North America, is it mainly the U.S.?
The U.S. is the dominant force, yes. Projected about USD 133 million for 2025. But Canada and Mexico are also showing, pretty healthy growth rates too, around 7.5% and 7.2% respectively.
Okay, so North America's big. What about Europe?
Europe's also a major market. They account for just over 29%, so around USD 132.30 million expected in 2025.
And the growth rate?
Pretty similar to North America, actually, about 6.9% annually. You've got strong markets like the UK, Germany, but it's quite widespread. France, Italy, Spain, even smaller countries like, say, Luxembourg are showing really decent growth, over 7%. It suggests, broad adoption across the continent.
Interesting. And then there's the Asia-Pacific region, often a powerhouse for growth.
And it doesn't disappoint here. APAC holds about 24% of the market right now, roughly USD 109.5 million for 2025.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. It's projected to be the fastest growing region by far. We're talking a CAGR of 10.7%.
10.7%.
Yeah.
That's huge. What's driving that?
Well, it's a mix of things. Rising incomes, certainly leading to more demand for health foods, plus a growing awareness and interest in natural ingredients in many Asian countries.
Right.
China's the biggest market there currently, but India is actually expected to have the highest growth rate within APAC, over 12%.
Wow. Okay, so APAC is really the one to watch for future growth.
Definitely seems that way.
What about the other regions? South America, where a lot of cocoa actually originates, And the Middle East, Africa.
Yeah, good point. South America has a smaller share, just over 3.8%, around USD 17.3 million in 2025. But its growth is strong, projected at 8.3%. Brazil and Argentina lead there.
Okay.
The Middle East is similar in size, about 4% share, maybe USD 18.25 million with an 8.4% growth rate. Saudi Arabia, UAE are key markets.
Right.
Africa currently has the smallest share, around 2.2%, about USD 10 million, and a more modest growth rate of 4.1%. South Africa is the biggest market within Africa.
So North America and Europe are the big players now, but Asia Pacific is where the explosive growth is happening.
That's the picture, yeah.
Okay, let's dive into the why. What are the core reasons, the main drivers, fueling this global surge for cocoa fiber?
Well, number one, I'd say, is the huge wave of health and wellness consciousness sweeping the globe.
Right. Everyone wants to be healthier.
Exactly. People are actively looking for healthier foods, more sustainable ingredients, and cocoa fiber being naturally high in dietary fiber. Well, it fits right in.
So you see it turning up in cereals, bars?
Oh, yeah. Energy bars, breakfast cereals, baked goods, even some beverages. It's an easy way for manufacturers to boost that fiber content naturally.
That makes total sense. And how is the food industry itself, beyond just fiber boosting, using it?
The food and beverage sector is definitely a major force here. They're using it not just for fiber, but also as a natural texturizer.
To improve the feel of the product.
Right. It can help with consistency, mouthfeel. That's especially useful in plant-based alternatives, trying to mimic textures people are used to.
Okay.
And it helps that regulations are sometimes making it easier. Like in India, they recently streamlined some food safety rules, which helps producers innovate with ingredients like this.
And I was really intrigued by the agricultural use you mentioned earlier. How does that work?
Yeah, isn't that neat? It's basically using this byproduct to improve soil.
How so?
It enhances the soil's ability to hold moisture, provides some nutrients. It can actually improve the soil structure, make it less compacted.
Okay.
Plus, it can act as a natural mulch to keep weeds down. So it's contributing to more eco-friendly farming, taking waste from one part of the food system and using it to benefit another.
That's proper circular economy stuff. Very cool. And I guess the whole plant-based movement ties in here too.
Absolutely huge connection. As more and more people choose vegan or plant-based diets, the demand for ingredients from plants, natural ingredients like cocoa fiber, just skyrockets. You see it in plant-based burgers, dairy-free milks, those kinds of products. And again, regulations are adapting, like India defining and requiring logos for vegan foods, which just reinforces the trend.
It really feels like we're getting smarter about using everything, finding value where we didn't see it before.
We are, and technology plays a big role. These advancements in processing cocoa waste are critical.
Making it efficient to get the fiber out.
Yes, turning those husks, which used to be waste, into this valuable fiber. It cuts down waste, creates a new product. It's a win-win.
Like that Nestle and Cargill trial you mentioned.
Exactly. Turning cocoa shells into low-carbon fertilizer. That's a perfect example of this innovative thinking, this upcycling trend.
Okay, so lots of strong reasons pushing this market forward. But surely it's not all smooth sailing. Are there any hurdles or restraints?
Yeah, there definitely are challenges. One major one is cost.
It's expensive.
It can be. Getting the husks, the raw material, and then the specialized processing needed to extract and purify the fiber. It all adds up. So it can end up being pricier than some other natural fibers out there.
And the supply of cocoa itself can fluctuate, right?
Yeah.
That must affect the husks too.
Precisely. Cocoa production levels can impact the availability and therefore the cost of the raw material. And the processing itself isn't simple. It can be quite labor-intensive.
And I suppose that cost factor means it faces competition.
It does. There are other natural fibers available, some of which might be cheaper or easier to source. So especially in markets where price is the main concern, cocoa fiber might face some headwinds from those alternatives.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's switch gears a bit and look at how the market breaks down. We've done regions, but what about other ways to segment it, like organic versus conventional?
Good question. Yes, you can segment it by nature. So conventional cocoa fiber is currently the bigger slice of the pie, market share-wise.
Okay.
But the organic segment is actually the fastest growing. That's really driven by consumers looking for that extra layer of, nutritional benefit and sustainable sourcing.
So organic is used mainly in health foods.
Yeah, you see it a lot in things like organic baked goods, cereals, health bars. It's seen as a premium natural dietary fiber, sometimes even used instead of synthetic thickeners.
Interesting. And what about different types of cocoa fiber products? Is it all the same stuff?
Not quite. When you look at product type, there's a segment called Dutch cocoa fiber, which actually holds the largest share right now.
Dutch, like Dutch processed cocoa powder.
Kind of related, yeah. It likely points to established uses, perhaps in the Netherlands, in traditional baking and chocolate products.
Okay.
But the natural segment, which hasn't undergone that same processing, is expanding really rapidly. People value it for the raw fiber, the antioxidant,
Okay.
and its potential as a fat replacer in healthier foods. Plus, it has prebiotic properties, which ties back into that gut health trend.
Right, feeding the good bacteria. We've touched on industries using it, but can you break down the end-use segments a bit more? Who are the biggest buyers?
By far, the food and beverages industry is the dominant end user. They're putting cocoa fiber into, well, almost everything: baked goods, snacks, dairy alternatives like yogurts or drinks, functional beverages.
For the nutrition, the texture, maybe even a hint of flavor?
Exactly, all those benefits. But interestingly, the segment expected to grow fastest is actually pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals, how do they use it?
Well, researchers are exploring it as an excipient, basically an inactive ingredient that helps deliver a drug, and also potentially in formulations for things like weight management or maybe managing blood sugar and diabetes because of the fiber content.
Wow, that's a whole other dimension.
Yeah.
Okay, so food is biggest now, pharma is growing fastest. How are products with cocoa fiber actually getting to us, the consumers? Sales channels.
Right now, the biggest channel is hypermarkets and supermarkets, your big grocery stores.
Makes sense, they stock everything.
They do. They carry a huge range of products, so naturally, many items containing cocoa fiber end up there.
But is that where the growth is?
Actually, the fastest growth is expected in independent grocery stores.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Well, these smaller, often local stores frequently put a big emphasis on sustainable, natural, or specialty products.
Right, they cater to that conscious consumer.
Exactly. So, cocoa fiber, with its natural and sustainable story, fits right in. Plus, its potential use in eco-friendly packaging aligns with the ethos of many of these stores.
So it's broadening its reach. Now, looking at the companies involved, who are the main players shaping this market? It sounds like it's getting crowded.
It is becoming more competitive, yeah. You've got some major global players really active in the space. Names you'd probably recognize: Monter Cocoa, Barry Callebaut,
Big chocolate guys.
right, and Cargill, Olam International, Nestle. These large companies have the resources, the supply chains, the R&D, and there's a noticeable push across the board towards sustainability in the whole cocoa value chain. That was a big focus at a recent UN FAO meeting, for instance.
It's good to see that sustainability focus from the big companies, too. And wasn't there something about new types of cocoa beans being developed?
Yes, that's happening too. Innovation at the very start of the chain. In India, the Central Plantation Crops Research Institute, CPCRI, they recently announced 2 new cocoa varieties.
What's special about them?
They apparently have high fat and nutrient content, which is good for chocolate quality, and one of them is also resistant to black pod rot.
Oh, that's a major disease for cocoa, isn't it?
It is, so developing resistant varieties could be a big help for farmers, potentially boosting the overall supply and stability down the line.
So innovation from the farm right through to using the husks, it really is a dynamic field.
Okay, to try and pull all this together then, what are the main things we should take away from this deep dive on cocoa fiber?
I think the core message is that the global market for cocoa fiber is really taking off. It's on a strong upward path.
Driven by health and sustainability. Exactly, those consumer demands are huge. Plus, its sheer versatility: food, drinks, agriculture, maybe pharma, packaging. It's finding uses everywhere. And the constant innovation, finding better ways to get it and new things to do with it, that's just adding fuel to the fire.
And just to remind ourselves of those numbers, we're talking about a market hitting around USD 456 million next year, potentially growing to over USD 838 million by 2033.
With that robust, nearly 8% annual growth.
Yeah. It definitely seems like a space full of opportunity, and ultimately it means more natural, fiber-rich, and sustainable options becoming available for all of us.
Absolutely, and maybe that leads to a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Think about how this rising demand for cocoa fiber, something once seen as waste, really signals a bigger shift.
Or it's using resources better.
Yeah, towards more sustainable, more circular ways of doing things, especially in food production, but maybe even beyond. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other waste products out there are just waiting for us to figure out their hidden value?
That's a great question. What else is hiding in plain sight? definitely something to think about.